Part 1. The Summoning to an Unknown World. Jia led an unremarkable life. He was an ordinary guy whose world was filled with gray routines, work, and minor concerns. In his childhood, he had dreams traveling to distant lands, performing feats that would change the world, but over time, they had dimmed under the weight of everyday life. He was alone, with no family or close friends. Like many, his days blended into a monotonous chain of duties and obligations from which he had long stopped deriving any pleasure. One day, as Jia was returning home after yet another long day, a bright beam of light unexpectedly shot down from the sky. It was blinding and Jia froze, shielding his eyes. The world around him began to vanish, as if being sucked into a black hole. Before he could understand what was happening, the ground beneath his feet disappeared, and he felt his body start to fall into the void. When he finally opened his eyes, he found himself in a clearing surrounded by dense forest. Overhead hung a strange pinkish sky with two moons surrounded by bright stars. Jia stood up, bewildered and frightened, not understanding where he was. Everything looked unreal, as if he had entered a world of fantasy or a dream. He had barely taken a few steps when armed soldiers in armor appeared before him, clearly expecting his arrival. "The chosen one of them whispered, bowing his head respectfully before Jia. A man in shining armor, apparently the commander of this small army, stepped forward and began to explain. It turned out that Jia had been summoned to this world as the chosen one, a great hero destined to defeat the demon king and bring peace. Jia's name had been mentioned in ancient prophecies, and they believed he was the savior who would change the course of the war between humanity and the demonic hordes." Jia was stunned. He wasn't a warrior, had never held a weapon, and the whole situation seemed unbelievable to him. But when they showed him his sword, which they said had been created by the gods specifically for him, he began to feel a strange warmth within. It was a power he had never known before. Part 2. Training and Duties. Several months had passed since Jia had been summoned to the new world. He had settled in the kingdom of humans and began to train in the art of combat. Learning to wield the divine sword, Jia felt a new power awakening within him every day. His teachers were astonished by his progress in such a short time. He had mastered battle techniques and magic that even seasoned warriors couldn't boast. However, with each passing day, Jia became more filled with questions. Why had he been summoned? What price would he have to pay to defeat the demons? And were the demons truly the ones who needed to be destroyed? He soon learned that the gods, so revered by humans, were far from the merciful and just beings depicted in the legends. These entities meddled in worlds to achieve their own goals, manipulating mortals like pawns. Their main objective was to maintain power over the universes, caring little for the fates of those who lived within them. One day, during a campaign against the demons, Jia's squad was ambushed. The unit he was part of was surrounded, and the fight was fierce. At the moment when all seemed lost, the demon king himself appeared before Jia. He was enormous, towering over the battlefield, his eyes glowing with blood-red light. Instead of killing Jia, the demon suddenly spoke. "You need not be a pawn in the hands of the gods," said the demon king. "Humans do not deserve your loyalty. They serve beings who play them like puppets. Join me, and you will know true freedom. Together we will change this world." Jia, shaken by the demon king's words, began to wonder. He had been taught that demons were absolute evil, that they had to be destroyed. But what if things weren't so black and white? What if the world of humans was also full of lies and hypocrisy? Deep down, Jia felt that the demon's words held some truth. Part 3. Joining the demons. With each new battle, Jia increasingly leaned toward the idea that humans and gods were using him as a tool. He was just another chosen one, a pawn in their quest for power. Anger and discontent grew within him. Finally, after a decisive battle with one of the demonic armies, Jia accepted the demon king's offer. Leaving the human kingdom behind, he joined the demons. His path became clear: to destroy everyone who stood in the way of his true freedom. On this path, he began to absorb the powers of the defeated. With every victory, he grew stronger, his body and mind changing. He was no longer the simple boy who once lived in a peaceful city. Now, he wielded the power that even the ancient demons feared. The demon king taught him ancient magical arts, secrets unknown to any mortal. Jia became a master of destruction, and each of his battles was a celebration of his growing might. But with that, he began to realize that even demons, like humans, sought power. They thirsted for blood and chaos, and their ambitions were no less vile. One day, after a particularly brutal battle in which Jia triumphed over several high-ranking demons, he realized he had become too powerful. He no longer needed allies. Neither humans nor demons could stand against him. He betrayed the demon king, absorbing his power and becoming the sole bearer of absolute authority. Part 4. Ascending to absolute power. Now, Jia had become something greater than just a man. He was a vessel of power capable of destroying worlds. His ambitions grew, and he decided that the gods who ruled this world must also fall. A new war began, but now Jia fought not demons or humans, but the gods themselves. Every god he faced was mighty, but none could match his strength. He absorbed their powers, growing stronger with each battle. Soon the entire pantheon of gods fell before his might. Jia sealed all the deities within himself, becoming the sole being capable of ruling the world. Now there was no one left who could challenge him. Humans feared him. Demons bowed before him. But with this absolute power came loneliness. The world became empty and meaningless. There were no more enemies, no more challenges. Jia had become the absolute ruler. But what now? What was the purpose of life when there were no opponents, and all were subjugated to him? Part 5. The Absolute End. Jia realized that by absorbing the power of others, he had lost something important: his humanity. The simple joy he once felt in ordinary life. He had become omnipotent, but at the same time utterly alone. There was no longer any meaning in battles or wars. All the gods and demons, those who once shaped the fate of the world, were now locked within him. And now, standing at the pinnacle of this world, Jia asked himself what's next. Power had not brought him happiness. It had only left him alone in the darkness of endless might.